Janey Lee Grace. Welcome to the Natural Health and Sobriety Show on UK Health Radio. Hi, and welcome to the Natural Health and Sobriety Show on UK Health Radio. So, as you know, I like to cover a huge array of topics on this show. And, one thing that I quite often come back to is topics around mindset, around manifesting, around focusing on what it is we really want for our future. And, I'm one of these people that it took me quite a long time to really come to this place, because I think I'm very much of a realist, actually. If truth be told, I think have you ever done those Myers-Briggs courses, trainings where you get to see what kind of personality type you are? They can be really fascinating, I find. And when I did that, I was very much kind of extroverted, off the scale extroverted. But I was also thinking. I had the T for thinking. And that does make sense, because I am someone who, I do like to think about things a lot. I'm also very much a questioner. And I like to ask a million questions. So I'm not very good at just kind of accepting stuff at face value. So for me, I've actually found my whole journey, into kind of personal development. I've found that I walk this really interesting fine line between absolutely 100% believing that, that my body can heal, that I can manifest what I want, that I need to keep my vibration high, and that what you focus on, you get more of. I really honestly believe all of those things. And yet there's a little part of me, I'm just being super honest here in case this resonates with anyone, there's a little part of me that kind of goes, oh yeah, but it's a little bit different for me because I've got this health issue or that thing going on, and you can't manifest your way out of that. So I really do kind of walk this interesting fine line when it comes to self-love, which of course is something that I talk about all the time in the Sober Club, in the work that I do with the Sober Club. We know that what underpins, in inverted commas, pretty much all addictions is that lack of self-esteem and that lack of self-love. And when I think back over the years, I know that for me, I was, again, in my thinking head. I was presenting shows on Hay House Radio. I was interviewing just about every guru there is, around self-love. And so there wasn't really anything in terms of the paperwork that I didn't get when it came to self-love. And yet, if you'd asked me how I, really felt about that personally, if you'd asked me, well, what's your meditation routine, or what's your daily practice, or tell me more about how you love yourself, I'd have just laughed and said, don't be so absolutely ridiculous. It's not about me. Just listen to the interviews I've done with the great and the good. So I actually really was not walking my talk. I really realised that now. Now, one key to that, one missing link, was the fact that I was still drinking. I know that now. The fact that I was still drinking alcohol meant that I couldn't really be authentic. There was a whole kind of layer of consciousness, I think, really, that was kind of knocked out. So that was definitely a piece of it. And so it's been a really interesting journey for me as I've come through that, and I suppose had to learn to trust. That's been one of the really big lessons for me, is to learn to trust. Anyways, it's a really long-winded introduction to a guy who I came across a while back. I absolutely love his work. I'm really envious that I didn't, kind of grasp all this stuff at his age. I just love the fact that he's a teacher, he's a visionary, he really gets it, and I think his work is just so very inspirational. So I really hope you enjoy the interview. So delighted to be able to chat to Luke again. Luke Scott III is a world-renowned spiritual mentor, award-winning international performer, and the founder of the revolutionary Quantum Regression process, which we're going to talk about. Luke, thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I'm happy to talk anytime.
It was ages ago, wasn't it, that we spoke? And I loved having you on the podcast. Can't even remember what we spoke about, but I know I loved it. So,
I think that
but
was
for
episode 82.
oh well,
So
there
I
you go.
don't
You
know
see, I'm printed on your brain.
what episode are you now? Where are
Oh,
we up to?
goodness knows. I don't know. 200 something, I think, probably. I don't know. A lot. I've done a lot anyways. But yeah, it's really lovely to chat to you. So, just for anyone who hasn't heard that podcast or isn't, aware of what you do, just take us back a little bit. Just share a little bit of your story with us.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, go check out episode 82. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
you can go and see the journey that we've been on. But yeah, so I came from a family history of lots of drugs and violence, and that was just the norm where I was from. Started abusing substances when I was very, very young. First time I got really drunk, I was 8 years old. One of my uncles at a party thought it'd be funny to give me a 2 liter bottle of Strongbow,
Wow.
and I was happy to drink it because I wanted to be like the grown-ups, and you see them doing it, and it's just so normalized, right? And then
Mm, mm.
that escalated when I was 14 years old to drinking bottles of white cider, downing them I lived on the seaside, downing them with my friends, and then not even being able to walk straight, and that just continued, and then yeah, it set me on this path of not really knowing how to socialize without being drunk
Yeah.
and feeling very uncomfortable to even dance or be, sober with my friends. It was just a part of our life then until I was 25 and I got in a fight when I was really drunk and I don't even remember it. And I woke up and I remember my teeth were smashed in. I was like really scared and I just had this realization. If that person had stamped on my head, I would have been dead
Mm.
and I wouldn't have even known about it. I was that drunk. And that was 9 years ago. And that was the last time I ever got that drunk. And I've been sober 7 years now, since 2016. It's when I really got serious about my sobriety. I had this spiritual awakening and realized my body's a temple and I have to be really careful about what I put into it because if I poison my body, if it's processing all of this toxins, it's really difficult to function. And I'm so glad that I don't have hangovers anymore.
Mm.
And now I help other people to release their addictions. I help other people to be able to enjoy their lives without needing alcohol or drugs or anything else. And it's been really, really wonderful. And I'm attracting this amazing tribe of other people. We do sober dances, we do sober festivals. I'm speaking at a number of sober festivals this year, and I think more and more of us are coming together. So I love the Sober Club, love everything that you're doing. And if anyone listening resonates and feels like a connection, please do reach out.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it, and I love the fact that straight away you mentioned that really important link between sobriety and spirituality, and I think it's such an interesting one because, as I'm sure we said on the last chat that we had, I think so many people feel that they're on a kind of a spiritual path, but they still haven't sorted this one out. And actually, it's really interesting because I found such a block going on for me because of the drinking. I was absolutely in denial about it, but I now realize there was a huge block. I think that, it's real. Alcohol lowers your vibration. There's no doubt about it. And it's very difficult to actually put yourselves in that kind of spiritual mode, to meditate, to really focus on anything spiritual, I think, when you're still drinking. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there's levels to it as well. And I've had the pleasure to travel all around the world and learn from different tribes and cultures. And I've been practicing something called shamanism for 6 years now.
Mm.
And there are actually some cultures where they use alcohol in ceremony as medicine. And they also use tobacco in ceremony as medicine. And they use
Hmm.
different kinds of things. And it's used very intentionally. You don't get drunk.
Mm.
And I think one of the issues is we abuse substances. We abuse food. Things that can be okay in moderation. But we don't do that, especially I didn't, that moderation word didn't even exist. And so I know some people who are very spiritual, they'll still have a glass of wine or a beer because they enjoy it. And they seem to be really, really happy. But my
Mm.
body now, it doesn't even want that. It doesn't
Yeah.
want anything to do with the alcohol. And I think everybody has different journeys, but I'm really happy with the place that I'm at.
Mm.
And it's not that I think alcohol is good or bad or right or wrong. Alcohol is actually very useful. Do you know, if you make tinctures, if you make plant
Yeah,
medicines,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And to
alcohol
anesthetize,
is
of course.
something. Yeah, alcohol is something that they use to extract do you know alcohol, alcohol? Do you know the
Yeah.
meaning of that? Have you
Yes, I
looked into
do.
that before?
I do, but please share it
So,
for everyone who hasn't heard it.
so the word alcohol derives from a word alcohol, and that basically means the spirit. And what they use alcohol for in science, if you have a plant and you want to extract the essence, extract the spirit from that plant, you use alcohol. It literally sucks the spirit out of the plant, and then you can use that for your tinctures and your medicines and whatever. And this is what I found happened to me. I would drink alcohol to the point where my body would become so toxic, my spirit would literally check out.
Mm.
And I call it blackouts. And the way I see it now is it's like my soul left my body, and then these other entities or energies, they just come and they take your soul for a joyride. And it's something deep to look into if you've never thought about it before. But the way I used to act when I was blackout drunk, it just wasn't even me. It was literally like someone was taking my body out for a joyride. And
Totally. Well, what I was just going to say there is, we all know that phrase. We hear people say, "Oh, she's not herself when she's drinking." Well, no, maybe she really isn't. Right? That's absolutely
yeah,
real. It's literally real, isn't it? You explained that really, really well. I had this whole conversation with Pops Buchanan from the Sober is Dope just a few weeks ago on the podcast. Actually, it's funny that you should raise it now. I mean, there's a reason why they're called spirits, right? The drinks.
I love
I mean,
science. I love science and I love spirituality, and I try and understand these spiritual things in scientific terms. I'm very like physics minded.
mm,
And so with our quantum regression course, it's like if you're a very spiritual person, it's great for you. If you're a very scientific person, it's great for you. I class myself as like being right down the middle. So I sat down with an astrophysicist a few months ago and we had this beautiful conversation. And I can sit down with someone who's a tarot card reader or works with angels or something, and we can be best friends too. And I think this is a really important thing at this time because one of my missions is to make this kind of information and knowledge accessible
mm.
and explain it in a way that anybody can get, a taxi driver, a janitor, or someone who's not been even through the education system, they can get these concepts. And I think a lot of the teachings like meditation and yoga, where you have to go for years to temple, it's prohibitive to people who might be listening to this show. The way I try and teach it is so you can come and just in a couple of hours you can transform your life. That's one of my gifts. And yeah, thank you for reflecting that.
Mm.
I think
No, absolutely.
explaining these complex things in simple ways is what a lot of us, if we can learn to do that, we can help a lot more people.
Yeah, totally. And I think, what you said as well, you're quite right. It's not the same journey for everyone. And when I was talking about, the idea that alcohol lowers your vibration and stops you from being able to be spiritual, of course, what I was referring to was people who were drinking the way I was, as in, too much when you don't even want to, that voice in your head that tells you, oh, go and have another one, even though you've only just, had half a bottle or whatever. So it's that, it's not, as you say, the very purposeful shamanic, use of alcohol or whatever at a ceremony. It is that daily drinking where it becomes out of control, or not necessarily daily, but it really is that thing of when you don't feel that you are in control of it any longer. That's the stage I think many people reach, but they're in denial about it because, as we know, in the UK there is this ridiculous misconception that there are only two types of drinkers. There are those who are absolutely at rock bottom and need rehabilitation and clinical support, and then there's everybody else and they're just fine. And of course that's not true. It's a real spectrum, isn't it?
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And your ability to drink a lot is celebrated. It's like if
Oh God, yeah.
if you can drink a lot, you're a hero. And I used to at university. I was able to open my gullet, so I could drink a whole pint in like 3 seconds was the
Oh my
fastest. And
God.
I was on the rugby team, so we used to do these crazy drinking games, and I was a hero, and people would carry me around on their shoulders, and so it obviously it's deeply ingrained in us. And one of the things I've come to learn because since I had my spiritual awakening, I get this connection and it tells me things and it shows me where I'm not really living in what I call alignment.
Mm,
So where I'm not living my best life and shows me all these different addictions and I've just been peeling them away, peeling them away. So I used to be addicted to coffee, so I don't have coffee anymore because it made me not be myself, just like what you said. I was out of control if I didn't have coffee. I was not a nice person, right? And
mm,
I'm like,
mm.
whoa, this substance has some kind of control over me. And then you have the same addictions to food. So I used to be addicted to meat. I was addicted to dairy. I was addicted to junk food. I was addicted to all sorts of things. And going back and seeing why is this addiction here? Where
Yeah,
does it come from? Sometimes it is literally passed down in our DNA. That
yeah.
is a very real thing. It can be passed down from your ancestry, and you can be the person who can clear it. And maybe if you're listening and you know you are like the odd one out in your family, or they call it the black sheep, we like to call ourselves the rainbow sheep because when we get in a room together and everyone's the black sheep, it's like we're the tribe of the black sheep. We're
Yeah,
all the odd ones out, so that makes us this beautiful rainbow.
yeah.
And you might be the person who's here to break those generational patterns.
Well,
And if you are
absolutely.
raising children, but really think about what are your kids seeing right now? Are they seeing addictive behaviors? Because they might very well start doing those things themselves.
Totally. And this ties in, very much with the work I do with family constellations. And I'm sure we discussed it last time, but, I in constellations, I see it all the time that there'll be someone you can literally see that they're carrying something that's from a past generation. It's held in that cellular memory. It's literally inherited trauma, as it were. And it can be really fascinating. And how amazing that we can literally break the cycle, as you say, be the one who's at the front of the line, as it were, to break the cycle. And we can break the cycle, not just for ourselves and for our children, for future generations, but we send that energy back into the past as well. That's what I really love about this work. It's almost like it heals the ancestors too.
If anybody here is a bit of a geek and you want to explore quantum physics, I have a wonderful video on my YouTube channel you might like. It's called Three Things You Don't Know That Will Change Your Life Forever. And this is not spiritual, this is just pure quantum physics. And it is proven that time as we know it doesn't exist, not in the way that we think it does. There's no such thing as past or future. That's just things that humans have made up. There's just
Mm,
this one moment called now, and time is actually not linear. It's not the way we think it is. And so when you play on with things on the quantum levels, this is why we do quantum regression. When you change yourself, it literally changes everything.
mm,
And it's a really beautiful thing to play with, Janey, because in quantum physics, it shows you that every particle in the entire cosmos is connected to every other particle. So every particle in you is connected to every particle in the entire cosmos by this thing called entanglement. Now, why is this important? If one person listening to this has an upgrade in bravery, every other particle in the entire cosmos gets an upgrade in bravery.
yeah.
If you stick to your sobriety and you show your courage, that inspires everybody. It's in the conscious collective now. Everybody can receive that. And this is why things are accelerating so fast now. I call this the Great Awakening, what we're in. I know it might seem like chaos if you are looking at it from
Yeah.
from a perspective where you haven't had these breakthroughs yet. But this is a time where, because of the internet, because of things like these podcasts, anybody, anywhere in the world can access information. We can all learn from each other so fast now, and it's really exciting. And I think this healthy, sober lifestyle is just going to get more and more predominant in our society.
Absolutely. And I think that, in addition, I think that kind of what you're saying there leads to the importance of the power of community, really, and making sure that you're connected. I think that obviously that's why I run the Sober Club, but, I think this whole idea of being part of a community where there are like-minded people and
And that may mean that there's, people ahead of you on the path, as it were, and people behind you on the path, and it's all good. But actually being connected is really key.
It's a wonderful thing. And this was my spiritual awakening, Janey, in 2016. I got this feeling of being connected to everything.
Mm.
And it's an experiential thing. It's not an intellectual thing. You experienced it, and maybe someone listening, you might have had that experience in your meditation. I've also had that experience during lovemaking. You literally become everything. You become the oneness. I in my book I talk about these things called soul orgasms, and it's like you just melt and you dissolve and you become the oneness. And there's different ways you can have that experience too. Some people do it in shamanic ceremonies and with music and with dancing, and you can lose yourself. And that's a really beautiful place to get to when you lose yourself. Because most of us, we have these stories and these personalities of who we are. And the stories, they're all just in your head.
Yeah.
Any story you have about you, it's just in your head.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the entire world has a different story about you. And you get to choose what story you tell. So this is why we do this reprogramming, and family constellations is amazing as well. I love family constellations work. We can literally reprogram your mind,
Yeah.
and we can reprogram your nervous system. And it doesn't take that long. People think because I used to go to conventional therapy. I did it for years. It was so slow because they're working only on the level of the mind. And I think when you work on the quantum level, when you start bringing in all of these different parts, we can shift people really, really quickly. So
Mm.
anyone who's tuning in, if you are looking to upgrade yourself right now, there's loads of options. And I definitely learned a lot from the conventional medical system. I'd say now that I play in this realm, I feel like this is the next level for the healthcare system, for them to start really looking at how can we shift things from people's cellular memory, from their DNA memory, instead of just from the mind.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's interesting, you mentioned this kind of knowing who you are. And I think that for many people, once they stop drinking, it's only then that they start to discover who they really are. Because, there's been so many layers there are so many layers that need to be kind of unpeeled and unwrapped, as it were. And that's why I think it can sometimes be tough for people in the early weeks and months, because, they really actually feel quite shaky, quite wobbly, because they don't really know who they are, because their whole emotional intelligence has been, it's been very small, really, the level of emotional intelligence, because all our big emotions were just covered up by drinking. In the early days, all the big stuff was covered up by drinking. You're incredibly blessed to have found sobriety at a young age. I'm very jealous. It's my only regret. Wish I'd done it sooner. But, for so many of us, it takes a little while before we're able to start to recognize who we really are, come back to who we really are.
Yeah, I think I probably drank more in my first 15 years of drinking than most people drink in their entire lives. So I was getting
Yeah.
blackout drunk 3 or 4 nights a week. We used to go really, really hardcore.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you just know, I call it enough is enough. It's like there's no answers there. And so you have to look somewhere else. But it was that near-death experience that really got me. I was like, whoa. And I'm thankful for that. Everything can
Yeah.
be, a beautiful nudge into the right direction for you. And when I became sober, one of the big problems was a lot of my friends didn't want to hang out with me anymore. They only wanted to hang out in bars or clubs.
Well, I was going to ask you
And so
about that. What happened for you in terms of your social scene? Because you're a young guy who'd made a decision that I guess most of your friends hadn't.
yes, absolutely. And I'm not friends with most of those people now. They turned left and I turned right. And it's, not good or bad or right or wrong. They have their path and I have mine. And I went and I started going to these personal development events where you can learn about upgrading your mindset. And I started going to these like ecstatic dance events. So one of my big breakthroughs was this dancing meditation called Five Rhythms. I
Yeah, I
recommend
love that. Gabrielle
everybody
Roth.
go and
Yeah.
find Five Rhythms.
Yeah.
I did it for about a year and I was so uncomfortable dancing sober to start with. But
Yeah.
you go there for like 2 hours and you just dance nonstop for 2 hours. And eventually you get out of your head and you get into your body and you start to find this flow and you go, whoa, I can really actually enjoy music a lot more when I'm sober. And that was a real amazing thing because everybody who's at that event pretty much are on a similar path. And so you start to make new friends. But there's this saying, isn't there, about if your cup is already full, let's say you've got a cup filled with really dirty water. You can keep putting clean water in, but it's still going to be dirty. You know, you have to empty the cup and wash it out, get right in there and clean all the muck out. And that's what we do, right, in our processes. We clean all the muck out, then you can fill it up with the fresh water, and now you've got something beautiful and nourishing. And I think a lot of people are scared to lose friends and relationships and
Mm.
family and jobs that don't serve them. And we do numb ourselves with the alcohol and with the food and with the TV and with the everything
Yeah.
because it's easier than facing the muck. And shamanism is all about facing the mud, the shadow. And there's a saying that if there's no mud, there's no lotuses. Lotuses only grow in the mud. And so it's like really learning to be okay with rolling your sleeves up, getting your marigold gloves on, and going into your past, into your childhood, and really give that closet a good clean out.
Yeah, absolutely.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Tell us a little bit about the work that you do then. How did you get into the work around regression? Well, I mean, maybe first of all, just explain what it is. There may be people who don't even understand what that means.
Absolutely. So I was institutionalized when I was a kid. I was sent to a psychiatric institution for 6 weeks for assessment. And they basically determined that I was a gifted child. They said that I was just not challenged in school and I was bored and that's why I was acting out. But mental health challenges have been a big part of my life journey. My dad was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was 5. And I was the person who would help my friends when they were in severe depression or suicidal. And I've really seen the underbelly of mental health. And I did conventional therapy for a long time, and so did my wife. And it just didn't quite help. It didn't clear the stuff. The triggers were still there. The thing happens and you get triggered, and it's instant. So I set off on a path to like figure that out, and I found a great teacher, and he showed me that every single thing you have in your life is there for a reason. And when you can connect into it, and this is just a super simple process, Janey, it doesn't take very long, and you can get people to go. So let's say you have a fear of public speaking. That's a big one that I help people with. It's almost always from your childhood.
Mm.
So you can regress them back to that place. It's called quantum regression. You take them right back. Where was the first time you felt this fear? And they go and they experience, oh, when I was a kid, my parents told me I was an inconvenience or to be quiet or that children should be seen or not heard. And I just locked that in. And we just go and we unpack it in a specific way and we reprogram it and we rewrite the story. And then their fear is gone like that. And you can do this with a fear of spiders or snakes or heights or anything. 20 minutes, you can get rid of someone's lifelong fear. And I was fascinated by this. And then I realized, whoa, you can do this with addictions too.
Yeah.
Every addiction has a place where it started. It might be from your ancestral line. It might be from your childhood. You made a decision at some point that you were going to do this thing to compensate for something or to cover something up or because you had a trauma. And it's the same with physical health issues too. So, if someone has, had a client recently, they had a pain for 10 years. They had all kinds of therapy. They couldn't get rid of it. After a 1 hour quantum regression session, their pain was gone forever. We
Wow.
basically connected to it. It was something from his childhood. We went and we reprogrammed that thing. His pain was gone instantly. And every pain, every sensation, everything you are attracting in your life, whether it's a relationship that keeps recurring, it's all there because there's some magic for you to get from it. And it's
Yeah.
just about finding
Yeah.
the right person to guide you to do that. But then I made a course, so I teach people how to do that now, and it's just 5 hours to learn how to do it. So it's been a really wonderful. Everyone who's doing the course is loving it, getting massive breakthroughs, and yeah, I'm shouting from the rooftops, Janie, that you don't have to
Fantastic.
suffer for years.
Tell me how it works with with addictions then, this, looking, I mean, obviously, when I've done constellations, addictions have often been part of what we've been looking at as part of the whole process. But tell me how it can work specifically if someone presents with an addiction.
Yeah, of course. So let's say, for example, they're addicted to alcohol, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. So we would get them into a state where they're able to talk to their subconscious mind. It's not that hard to do. It's a bit like a hypnosis, but there's no hypnotherapy, there's no trance state or anything like that. I am a certified hypnotherapist, so I learned how to do that. I found a way where you don't actually need to take people into the process. So we get you to communicate with your subconscious mind because your subconscious knows everything. But most of us, we're just so busy, we don't make time to listen. And this is where meditation can be so great because you can just start to get through these things that are not from your conscious mind. So we get you into that place and we connect into this thing. Let's say it's an alcohol addiction. And we go right to the root cause of where it came from. A lot of the time, it's some kind of trauma that happened and then wasn't processed, wasn't resolved. A lot of the time, it can be from a family member. It can be passed down in your genetics. Absolutely can be. And when we find what the thing is and why it's there, we then start this reprogramming process. And it's really easy to reprogram your subconscious mind when you're in that kind of state. It's called a theta state, if anyone wants to go look it up. THETA. It's a really slow brainwave state. It's the state you're in first thing you wake up in the morning, and it's the state you're in just before you go to bed at night. So they're like prime times to listen to some kind of affirmations, to program your mind, those two places. But if you do a hypnotherapy session, that's the state they get you into. From there, you can reprogram the mind, tell new stories, clear it out from the cells, clear it out from the DNA. And anybody can do this. You can learn how to do it really, really quickly. I think one of the gifts I have is, again, taking this thing, which I spent years learning, and now I've found a way to teach it to people in 5 hours.
Amazing. I love it. Well, I mean, we could talk forever. There's so many different things we could dig into, but I love all the work that you're doing. It's super exciting. I hope we can team up on something. I mean, I'd love to do something, an event or something together, because we need more sober raves, sober events. We need more of that stuff, right? We need more where we can bring people together. So
absolutely. I'm speaking at 7 sober festivals this year.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
There are a lot of sober festivals.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's what we need. We need a lot more of this.
For sure, let's all get together wherever you are in the world. Do you want me to name drop some of them for people so they can kind of find them?
just send me a list and I'll put some stuff on the show notes.
Yeah, great. Wherever you're based, I'm speaking at some in Manchester, some down near London, all over the place. There are sober festivals. There's so many of us, and I think it's a great time for us all to come together. And my friends just went to a rave last night. There's a DJ that they like, and he said it was horrible because everybody was just so drunk. And he's sober now. He's been sober 2 years. And he couldn't really enjoy the concert because of all the people who were so inebriated.
Yeah.
And so I think as the demand increases, more and more of us will keep doing this. But all of my events are sober. They have been now for a long time. And so many of my friends, we only hold sober spaces. And I think if any of you are running events and festivals and stuff like that, be brave and put that out there. And a lot of people will appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and even if, people are doing events that are not necessarily sober, at the very least, have great choices for those of us that are. Because, I was having this conversation recently with a guy who'd been doing, surveys around businesses, around brands, and the rise in great alcohol-free drinks and kombuchas and goodness knows what. But still, within the kind of catering industry, it's really poor, really, really poor. You go to an awards ceremony or a conference, and really, as a non-drinker, you still have the option of water if you're lucky, or warm orange juice. That's your lot. And
Warm orange
actually,
juice, yeah.
yeah,
Concentrated warm orange juice as well.
yeah, totally, absolute rubbish. And as you say, there are more and more of us, and of course we want to get together and have fun. So more places need to be on board with the, great stuff that we would like to drink. Thank you very much. So
there are many layers to it, aren't there? Because they want the people to be relaxed, and most of them aren't relaxed enough to go and do a speech or go and dance if they don't have a few drinks. And so this is the work to get more of us in our bodies, able to enjoy life and do public speeches and award ceremonies and that kind of thing without needing the alcohol there as a crutch. But
totally,
I think we're getting there. We're making great steps.
Yeah, definitely. Things are changing. Fantastic to chat to you, Luke. I really appreciate it. It's really lovely to chat to you. I can't wait till we get to meet up. And you've got a lovely new baby as well, haven't you? You're so lucky, so fabulous.
14 days old, yeah, beautiful little girl.
Old as we're recording this. How gorgeous. Lovely. Well, enjoy that special time, that really magical, wonderful time. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Luke.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you, Luke. I will put links to various things in the show notes. And thank you so much for being so inspirational. I really do think that the thing that is going to make the difference for all of us, whatever we have going on with our health, with our well-being, with how we show up in the world, is keeping those vibes high. It sounds terribly woo-woo and nothing, but it's everything, isn't it? Making that choice to raise your vibration, that's really the absolute key to everything. And I feel inspired again to remember this. I did an interview a little while ago for UK Health Radio with Sue Stone, and she's another wonderfully inspirational person who constantly reminds me, that lovely saying, I love life and life loves me. And sometimes it's enough just to remind yourself of that. When you feel yourself slipping down into that kind of despair and misery and feeling sorry for yourself, just remember, actually, you know what? I can lift myself up and I can remind myself I love life and life loves me. Make sure you get in touch if you'd like to follow any of my work at Janey Lee Grace. I'm very easy to find on social media. My website, imperfectlynatural.com, covers all my stuff around holistic well-being. We have the Platinum Awards. So if you have a brand or if you are a coach or a well-being author and you'd like to enter the awards, which are supported by UK Health Radio, please have a look at platinamuawards.co.uk. And if you're interested in the sobriety piece, maybe you're drinking more than you want to, you're not at rock bottom, but perhaps you know that you could gain, your life could be different if you weren't drinking, then do check out our membership site, The Sober Club, thesoberclub.com. And it's just a whole wealth of incredible inspirational material. Plus, there's a course called Get the Buzz Without the Booze, and we have a private forum as well, where you can just feel inspired and connected, totally non-judgmental, and it's small. It's not one of those huge groups. So do check out, if that's of interest, thesoberclub.com. And I'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Natural Health and Sobriety Show on UK Health Radio.